Greetings, y'all. Mark C. here from RadicalU.com. That's RadicalU.com, where together we are waking up the world. Today's topic, and it's a doozy, dealing with anger in these challenging times. Now, there's plenty to be pissed off about these days. A pandemic that's going on year 3 with no end in sight, unresponsive governmental action, or, depending upon your point of view, over-responsive governmental action to said pandemic, a deepening polarization occurring among people in rival political parties, voting rights under assault, especially here in the United States, a seeming loss of civility in public life. Witness the emergence of the so-called Karens and Kens who feel it's now their duty to let you know how pissed off they are publicly. A rise of authoritarian movements, not just here in the United States, but globally. Existential dread about climate change, and an American press, and I'm sure this is true probably throughout the world, a press that drowns in sensationalism for profit over sober analysis of what's really going on. The recent Netflix movie, Don't Look Up, captured the zeitgeist of our times pretty well. No spoiler alerts here, I promise you. But I do recommend that you see it, as it takes on many of the layers of the craziness we have found ourselves in through their brilliant allegory. In short, as a world, we're dealing with a collective trauma on many levels, both personal and in our public life. I think we can all agree that we're living in very interesting, if not harrowing, times. Now, to speak personally about the times we live in, I find myself being pretty angry a good deal of the time, to be honest. I often rail about those with whom I disagree with politically, creating enemies both real and imagined. Now, on the imagined side, when I see someone sporting a particular bumper sticker on their car, expressing a point of view that I disagree with, I not only have a few words about their choice, but concoct an imagined story on how they live their life, and then congratulate myself because I don't have those beliefs. Yeah, rather judgy for me for sure. Now, lest you think that this video is about kumbaya and coming together, no, that's not where I'm trying to go with this. And to be honest, there are places I really wish people wouldn't go, as I feel strongly that humanity is harmed by unconscious actions. But here's another kicker, just to complicate things a little bit more. Oftentimes, I feel subsequent remorse for feeling so judgy, that I'm being unfair as I nurse my way or the highway mentality. So it's been a place where I've been pretty stuck. Recently, however, I did have a session with one of my mentors, Evan Greger from innerworkcoach.com. That's innerworkcoach.com, all one word. He is terrific, by the way, and I've linked his website below, so you check him out. I described one particular aspect of my anger dilemma with him. After several minutes of describing the plight, after all, I did have to vent, and boy did I vent, the upshot of what he relayed back to me was, well, how's this all working for me? You know, it stopped me dead in my tracks as I had to confront those feelings, which, to be fair, he did validate, but then gently asked me to look at them from a different perspective. So allowing myself to feel anger was the first step. But as we shined a light on it, deeper feelings emerged. Sadness and grief. Like a wave of this overwhelming sense of loss came over me. Loss for doing many of the things that I used to do before the pandemic. Feeling that we're entering some kind of new normal which may challenge the life that, frankly, I've grown accustomed to. Sorrow for the images of people exhibiting their own pain in public ways, the so-called Karens and Kens I just mentioned. Concern and some fear for where my country of origin is heading. Many members of my family who are now long gone, who lived through the Depression and World War II, may not recognize what the United States looks like today. Then I ask myself, were their efforts ultimately in vain? Again, incredible sadness for that. Just looking at all of it with pain and then just letting that pain wash over me. I also realized that as a purebred American male, anger was also the easy default emotion. And after that burnt out, I was just left with the sadness. Now, my point is not to wallow in any of these emotions, but to recognize its truth and to give voice to those parts of me. In spiritual terms, you cannot go wrong with the light of consciousness, even if the resulting emotions feel uncomfortable. So, back to how this was all working for me. The short answer, not great. I found myself not particularly happy. My blood pressure was probably skyrocketing, and I got pretty reactive to the small shit like, overcooking a meal or not tying my shoelaces right or whatever it happened to be. In short, finding myself not really in the moment, but then berating myself, which just exacerbated my sour mood. So there's anger, and just a centimeter below the anger is sadness. And in some ways, I just used my anger as a way of running away from the sadness. And now, the sadness, the anger, it's all out there for me to process and, more importantly, feel and to ultimately reconcile. So here's what I arrived at. It's really okay to be angry. There's plenty, as I mentioned, to be angry about. The real question is, how do I channel this anger? More importantly, it's okay to feel sadness and loss. Now, once seen for what they are, the anger, the sadness, I can have those feelings, but not let them define me or my outward actions. So now, perhaps when I see someone with an opposing political viewpoint, I can still reject their stance without rejecting them. I can still see the humanity in them. I can still fight for causes that I believe in. And there's no shortage of justices that need to be reconciled and rectified. I look at the legacy of Martin Luther King, who possessed a fighting spirit with the power of his words and deeds, all the while doing so with an energy of loving nonviolence. He wasn't a go-along to get along kind of guy, no kumbaya for him. At the same time, I can approach this world from a deeper sense of my inner authority, where I can direct my passion in more constructive ways. Talking it through with somebody who understands helps, like talking to Evan. Taking concrete action, such as supporting causes that I believe in, also helps. Joining affinity groups, I've joined a few on Discord, that platform, is another. And even doing this video is kind of helping, to be honest. Remember, these more enlightened actions are only a result of confronting what's inside first. But the cool thing, I discovered I'm not stuck in the cocoon of emotions that enveloped my entire being. There is a much vaster place where I can be and operate. So, as we go through this collective trauma, here's a few recommendations. Take them for what they're worth. Find a trusted friend, a therapist, a coach, or a good friend who can get you through. Don't feel as though you're alone, because you're not. With someone you trust, know it's okay to feel whatever emotions that you're feeling. Let them move through. There's no good in letting them simmer and have them come out sideways, especially when you least expect it. And once processed, I think you'll be surprised in how much resilience you have and the ability to act in a constructive way. Okay, that's it for this go around. My pleasure, as always, to share my journey along with you. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're in need of assistance in moving through your life's path, I'm available at aradicalu.com, and the link is below. Take good care, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.